The court had gathered to hear the moon crickets sing for a bride. Instead, they heard Marra Fenwick breathe. It was not supposed to be enough to fill the Summer Moon Courtyard. Not against the silver fountains, the hanging lanterns, the silk banners stitched with black wolves and white moons, the hundreds of nobles standing in crescent rows to witness Alpha King Soren Black present his chosen Luna. It was not supposed to matter at all. Marra's breathing had been ignored for 41 years. She stood near the back herb arch with a basket of folded linen in her arms, dressed in brown servant wool because no one had thought to give an aunt ceremonial blue. Her dark hair was streaked with early silver and braided tightly at her neck. Her face was not young enough for pity and not old enough for reverence, which made her the sort of woman courts found easiest to use. Her hands were clean, though the nails had crescent stains from tending cricket moss before dawn. No one looked at her until chosen Luna Arilla Wren smiled and said, "Aunt Marra, come closer." The word aunt made the younger wolves laugh softly, not because it was false, because it was useful. Marra had been aunt to half the courtyard in every way that did not earn a place in song. She had bound scraped knees, carried fever water, mended sleeves, prepared moon tea, watched children during wolf shift ceremonies she was never invited to join, and kept old widows fed when their sons forgot. She had belonged everywhere and nowhere, useful in kitchens, useful in sickness, useful in grief, useless in glory. She stepped forward because refusing would become its own spectacle. The moon crickets waited in their woven cages along the fountain rim, thousands of tiny silver-bodied creatures with wings thin as glass. At true pack unions they sang before the vow, their music rising like moonlight turned to sound. A Luna blessed by them was said to carry no false thread into the Alpha's bloodline. Tonight, they were meant to sing for Arilla. Arilla stood beneath the central arch in pale blue silk, every fold chosen to flatter the court's idea of innocence. Her golden hair was pinned with moon pearls. Her white wolf mark glimmered faintly at her collarbone, visible enough to satisfy the council, modest enough to look sacred. She was young, beautiful, unmated by scandal, and descended from a house that controlled 3 river roads Soren's kingdom needed. That was why she was chosen. Everyone knew it. Everyone called it destiny. Alpha King Soren Black stood beside her in a mantle of midnight fur, taller than any man in the courtyard, black-haired, broad-shouldered, and still as a blade waiting inside its sheath. His eyes were the color of winter iron. His royal wolf lived close to his skin. Marra could feel it the way one felt thunder before hearing it. It pressed the air thinner around him. He had not looked at Marra all evening. That should not have hurt. It did. Not because she expected tenderness. Marra had outgrown foolishness before some of the young brides had learned embroidery. It hurt because 3 nights ago, when Arilla had ordered the no-howl women to stand behind the herb arch, where silence belonged, Soren had heard. He had said nothing. Silence from an Alpha King did not remain empty. It became permission. He had not ordered her shamed. That was what made it worse. He had only decided that river roads mattered more than where the no-howl women were made to stand. Arilla lifted a hand toward Marra's basket. There are not enough blessing cloths near the cricket cages. There were. Marra had counted them twice. Still, she crossed the courtyard with the linen. A noblewoman whispered, "Careful. If she stands too close, the crickets may forget what sound is." A few laughed. Someone else said, "No, howl blood should not be near a Luna rite." Marra kept walking. No howl. They said it as if it named an absence, but Marra had never felt empty. She felt too much. The shift of weather against stone, the sour fear in a child's sweat before fever broke, the difference between ordinary silence and the hush of a creature choosing not to sing. What she did not have was a wolf's public proof. No howl had ever broken from her throat beneath the first moon. No pack song had ever answered her. No male had ever marked her as mate, wife, chosen, or bride. In the language of court, that made her unfinished. In the language of kitchens, it made her available. In the language of old women, it made her tired. Irilla's smile softened as Marra reached the fountain rim. Do not look so grave. Tonight is joyful. Marra placed the cloths beside the first cage. Joy does not need witnesses mocked into it. The nearest councilman stiffened. Arilla's eyes brightened, not with tears, but with opportunity. I asked you closer because I wanted you included. Included meant displayed. Marra had learned that word long before the young learned Mercy. No, Marra said quietly. You asked me closer because cruelty sounds gentler when it calls itself kindness. The courtyard went sharp. Soren looked at her then, at last. His gaze struck like cold water. Not angry, not soft, assessing, a king measuring damage, threat, politics, timing. He should have looked away again. That would have been familiar. He did not. Arilla turned toward him with perfect wounded restraint. My king, I meant no offense. I only thought your court should see that even those without a howl may serve the Luna bond. Serve. There it was. The clean word they used when they wanted a woman low but smiling. Marra folded the final cloth and set it beside the largest cricket cage. Inside, the moon crickets shifted. Not loudly. Barely. Thousands of silver wings brushed against woven reed. A sound like frost touching glass. Marra's fingers paused on the cage rim. The old mother cricket near the center did not move. Marra knew that one. Pale left wing, missing back leg, stubborn enough to survive 2 bad winters and 1 nest flood. Marra had fed her crushed moon seed from the tip of her little finger when the creature refused every dish. She had carried her inside her sleeve during the frost fever so the cricket's body would not fail before spring. The pack called the creatures sacred. Marra knew them as hungry, delicate, temperamental, and honest. Irilla stepped closer to the central arch. Let the blessing begin. A priest raised his silver staff. The court lifted its faces. Every cage around the courtyard began to tremble. This was the moment the moon crickets were supposed to sing. A thin note rose from the first cage. Then another, then 100. Silver sound gathered beneath the lanterns, soft at first, then swelling toward the kind of beauty that made even cruel people look innocent while listening. Irilla smiled. Soren's shoulders eased by the smallest measure. The priest opened his mouth to announce the Luna blessing. Then Irilla took one final step into the circle. The sound died. Not faded, not faltered. Died. Every moon cricket in the Summer Moon Courtyard went silent at once. The fountain still poured. The lanterns still swayed. The nobles still stood with half-made smiles on their faces. But the blessing was gone. This was not a love song. Marra knew that before the court did. Moon crickets did not choose crowns. They refused false thread. The priest lowered his staff. Again. No cricket answered. He struck the stone once with the silver staff, harder. Again. Silence. A terrible kind. Not empty. Chosen. Marra's heart began to pound. Because there was one sound left. Tiny. Hidden. Close. Inside her right sleeve, against the warmth of her wrist, one moon cricket began to sing alone. Not any cricket. The old mother cricket. Pale left wing. Missing back leg. The one Marra had carried through frost fever inside her sleeve, and Marra understood before anyone else did. This was not a Luna song. It was witness. No one moved toward the cricket in Marra's sleeve. That was how she knew they were more afraid of witness than miracle. The lone song trembled against the warmth of her wrist, small enough that a cruel court could have pretended not to hear it if the rest of the courtyard had not gone so completely silent. Every woven cage along the fountain rim stood still. Thousands of moon crickets held their glass wings closed, refusing the blessing the priest had struck stone to demand. Only the old mother cricket sang, pale left wing, missing back leg. Alive because Marra had once kept her warm when no one else thought a broken cricket worth saving. Arilla's face did not change at first. That was her gift. Shock moved through other women's eyes, other women's mouths, other women's hands. Arilla held it behind her teeth until it became something useful. Then she turned toward Marra. "How strange," she said softly. "The only cricket that sings is hidden on the no-howl ant." The court found direction inside the accusation. A councilman beside the west fountain narrowed his eyes. Was the creature placed there? Another said, "A Luna blessing cannot be witnessed by a woman without a howl." The priest gripped his silver staff with both hands. "Bring the cricket forward." Marra did not move. The song in her sleeve thinned, then steadied again, as if the tiny creature had heard the command and chosen not to fear it. Arilla took one graceful step closer. "Marra, this ceremony belongs to the pack. If you have tainted a sacred insect out of resentment, confess before worse law is called." Resentment. Marra had heard that word all her life from people who confused memory with bitterness. If she remembered who forgot the widows, she was resentful. If she counted linen twice because young wives blamed old hands for missing things, she was resentful. If she stood upright while being placed behind the herb arch, she was resentful. She looked at Arilla's white wolf mark, glowing faintly at the bride's collarbone. The mark seemed beautiful from a distance. Too beautiful. Like moon paint laid over skin that had not earned the bite of light. "I did not taint her," Marra said. "I warmed her." A few faces shifted. Not softened. Uncertain. That was more dangerous to Arilla than pity. High Priest Aldrin of the Summer Moon Court descended 3 steps from the blessing dais. His beard was white, his robes silver, his eyes as dry as old bone. "No, howl women may tend cages, clean moss trays, and prepare cloth. They do not interpret Luna song." Marra almost smiled. Almost. There it was in clean temple language. Service without witness, labor without voice. Hands permitted near sacred things, but never believed when those sacred things answered back. Soren had not spoken. Marra felt that silence like a hand against the back of her neck. He stood beside Arilla beneath the central arch, the black fur of his mantle stirring, though no wind moved in the courtyard. His gaze had fixed on Marra's sleeve. Not on her face. Not yet. On the place where proof hid, because she had spent years being trusted only with what others did not value. Arilla saw where he looked. "My king," she said, quiet enough to sound wounded. "If she has placed a trained cricket near her skin, the right is compromised." Soren's eyes lifted to Marra's. For one moment, she saw the struggle in him. Not love, not trust, something harder. A king hearing silence where ceremony should have been, and not yet willing to call the silence truth because truth would cost him roads, alliances, a chosen bride, and perhaps the comfort of believing he had only been practical. The priest raised his staff. "Seize the sleeve, remove the insect." 2 guards stepped forward. The old mother cricket sang once, sharper. Soren's voice stopped them. "No one touches her sleeve." The guards froze. Marra did too. Not because he had saved her, because he had still not said no one touches Marra. Arilla's lips parted in perfect disbelief. "You would protect the hiding place of a corrupted witness?" Soren did not answer quickly. Marra answered for him. "He is protecting the part of me the court suddenly needs." His jaw tightened. "Good. Let him hear it." The priest's face hardened. The Luna blessing requires the full choir. One insect cannot overrule thousands. It is not overruling them, Marra said. It is telling you why they stopped. And what would you know of Luna song? Marra looked at the cages. She knew which ones preferred damp moss, which ones would not breed if placed too close to copper lanterns, which newly hatched nymphs needed crushed moonseed, and which would die if handled after rain. She knew that sick crickets went quiet before they went still, and frightened crickets sang backward, and true witness song never rose for a false thread. She knew because she had listened when the court only admired. Enough to know this is not a Luna song, she said. The priest's brows drew together. Marra lifted her right arm slightly. The cricket song grew clearer through the cloth. Moon crickets do not choose crowns. They refuse false thread. Arilla's expression sharpened before she could smooth it. There, small, but not small enough. Soren saw it. So did Marra. The Alpha King turned slowly toward his chosen bride. What false thread could she mean? Arilla's voice softened at once. My king, you know what this is. The old aunt has watched younger women enter the circle year after year. Some griefs curdle when left unnamed. Marra laughed once under her breath. Not loud. Enough. Arilla's eyes flashed. Soren looked back at Marra. Open your sleeve. It was not a plea. Not trust. Accommod. Marra held his gaze. Do not make my care look like contraband. His face changed. Just a little. The kind of change a man tried to hide when truth reached beneath rank. I am asking to see the witness, he said. No, Marra answered. You are asking the woman you let be displayed to hand you the only voice that did not abandon her. The courtyard held that. Soren did not look away. Then he did something no one expected. He lowered his hand from the hilt of his ceremonial blade and opened his palm. Not toward the cricket, toward Marra. Then let it choose whether the ceremony continues. A ripple moved through the court, quickly swallowed. Marra did not mistake the gesture for tenderness. Soren still had not cleared her, still had not named her worthy of witness, still stood beneath the arch with Arilla. But he had stopped trying to take. That mattered. Not enough, but it mattered. Marra lifted her sleeve. The old mother cricket stepped onto the edge of the brown cloth, silver body trembling, pale left wing glinting beneath the lanterns. She was small, broken, unroyal. The kind of creature court children would have crushed if she crawled across a polished floor. Her song widened, not louder, deeper. Every silent cricket cage answered by shivering without sound. The priest frowned. That is impossible. Marra watched the old mother cricket turn toward Arilla. The note changed. A thin strand of silver light pulled from the cricket's wings and drifted across the courtyard. It did not go to Soren. It did not circle Marra. It flew straight toward Arilla's white wolf mark. Arilla stepped back. Only one step. The silver thread touched her collarbone. Her white wolf mark flickered. For half a breath, the mark did not look like a mark at all. It looked like song stitched into skin. Marra's stomach tightened. She knew that pattern. Not because she had seen it on a Luna, because she had heard it in the nests. Years of late-night tending. Years of humming to frightened crickets when thunder shook the moss trays. Years of warming eggs beneath her shawl when winter came too early. Years of quiet care, absorbed by tiny bodies and returned as trust. Someone had taken that song, not stolen from her throat, from her care. Arilla's hand flew to her collarbone. The courtyard saw. Soren's royal wolf stirred so violently the fountain water rippled. Marra whispered, Your mark was sung in. Arilla's eyes became cold. All Luna marks are sung awake. No, Marra said. Not by stolen nest song. The priest stepped forward. This is a dangerous accusation. Marra did not look at him. Then let the cages answer. Every moon cricket remained silent. The old mother cricket turned back toward Marra and crawled along her sleeve to her wrist. Then, with one broken leg dragging, she leapt. Not far, only onto the moonstone basin beside the central arch where the Luna blessing record waited in still water. Every true ceremony left a sound mark there, a ripple that remained silver until the next full moon. The old mother cricket stood on the rim. Irilla whispered, "Remove it." No one moved, not even Soren. The cricket sang once. The basin water trembled. A silver ripple formed across the surface, bending into letters no priest had written. The court leaned forward despite itself. Marra stopped breathing. Because the Luna Blessing record did not write Irilla's name. It wrote a witness line, Care Witness, Marra Fenwick, and beneath it, smaller but brighter, another line surfaced. Nest Song Taken Before Vow. The priest tried to cover the water before the second line finished shining. His sleeves swept toward the moonstone basin, silver silk flashing under the lanterns, but the old mother cricket opened her broken wing and sang once more. The water hardened, not into ice, into witness. High Priest Aldrin's hand stopped above the basin, trembling as if the surface had become a blade turned upward. The silver letters remained bright beneath him, too clear for even a court trained in forgetting to mistake. Care Witness, Marra Fenwick, Nest Song Taken Before Vow. No one in the Summer Moon Courtyard said Marra's name after the basin wrote it. That was the first cruelty. The second was how quickly they tried to discuss the record without discussing the woman standing before it. Irilla recovered by lifting her chin. Care Witness is not Luna Witness, she said, voice clean enough to sound instructed by law rather than fear. It only proves she handled the creatures. No one denies that Aunt Marra has been useful in the nests. Useful. The word returned with a clean dress and a knife under it. Marra looked at the old mother cricket on the basin rim. The tiny creature's wings trembled from effort. One song had cost her. Two had nearly bent her body flat. Soren saw it too. His gaze moved from the cricket to Marra's sleeve, then to the basin. What is Nest Song? The question broke something, not the record. The court. A few older women near the herb arch looked down at their hands. One widow pressed her lips together until they disappeared. High Priest Aldrin turned slowly, his expression controlled, but his staff had shifted half an inch away from the basin, as if even priestly authority preferred not to stand too close to the answer. Irilla spoke first. A tender name for insect noise, my king. Nest workers use it when they spend too much time among cages. Marra did not look at Soren when she answered. Nest song is what moon crickets remember from being kept alive. The courtyard held still. She continued because if she paused, they would fill the silence with law. They do not only sing for crowns. They sing what they were fed, warmed by, frightened with, healed through. A cricket raised in kindness knows the shape of care. A cricket starved into obedience knows the shape of command. The old mother cricket lowered her pale wing. Soren's eyes darkened. And stolen nest song? Marra looked at Irilla's white wolf mark. Care taken from a nest and tied to a rite it never blessed. Irilla laughed softly. How poetic. How convenient. Aldrin found his footing again. No, how women may tend. That is old mercy. They may clean the moss, prepare the reed cages, warm weak hatchlings, carry feeding trays, and bury the dead insects after winter. But they cannot be named inside the Luna Blessing record. Marra turned to him. Apparently the record disagrees. His mouth tightened. The record has been disturbed. No, she said. It has been read by something smaller than your pride. A few faces changed. Not many. Enough. Soren looked toward the priest. If the record named her Care, witness, the title exists. Aldrin bowed his head only slightly. Or it was forced into the water by a tainted cricket. Irilla seized that. Exactly. The old aunt kept the creature hidden in her sleeve. No one knows what she trained it to sing. Marra felt the insult land, but it did not cut as deeply as it once would have. There was strange relief in being accused of power after a lifetime of being accused of absence. She lifted her right sleeve again. The old mother cricket turned toward her. I trained her to live, Marra said. The words were quiet. They entered deeper than a shout. Soren's royal wolf stirred beneath his skin. Marra felt the pressure of it move through the courtyard, unsettled and watchful. For the first time since the ceremony began, the Alpha King looked not at Irilla's beauty, not at the priest's staff, not at the River Road nobles waiting for alliance, but at the small brown stains on Marra's fingers. Cricket moss, moonseed dust, years of invisible proof. Irilla saw where he looked and hated it. My king, she said, this is humiliation disguised as evidence. I entered the circle as your chosen Luna. She stands here as a servant ant with a wounded insect and a basin full of disturbed water. Marra looked at Soren then. Not hopefully. Hope was too expensive. You heard her, she said. Servant ant, wounded insect, disturbed water. That is what witness becomes when it comes from the wrong hand. Soren's jaw tightened. Good. She did not need his softness. She needed the shape of his silence to finally hurt him. The priest raised his staff again. The ceremony must be purified. Remove the old cricket from the basin, cleanse the water, and bring an untouched cage from the inner nest. No, Marra said. Aldrin's eyes flashed. You do not command this right. No, she said, but I tended the inner nest you are about to use. That stopped him, only for a breath. But enough. Soren turned to Marra. What will an inner cage show? Marra swallowed. The answer frightened her because she did not know all of it. She knew only what the crickets had refused to sing, and what the old mother had carried to the water. Moon crickets did not explain evil like storytellers. They pressed truth through sound, one thin line at a time. They will show whether the nest song was taken before tonight, she said. Irilla smiled. Then bring it. Too quick. Marra looked at her. That was not confidence. That was preparation. 4 attendants carried the inner cage from the Moon Arch passage. It was covered in blue silk, the ceremonial color no one had given Marra. The cage was larger than the others and carved from pale willow, sealed with a silver clasp. Inside it, the crickets should have been trembling with night song. They were silent. Marra's throat tightened. Not from surprise, from grief. The cage smelled faintly sweet. Too sweet. Moon crickets liked damp moss, crushed moonseed, clean reed, and old stone. They did not smell of sugared milk unless someone had fed them to dull their wings. Poison did not always kill. Sometimes it only made witness sleep. Marra stepped toward the cage. Aldrin blocked her with his staff. No, Howl hands will not touch the inner blessing cage. Soren's voice cut across him. Move the staff. The priest turned. Majesty, move it. Aldrin obeyed, but his eyes remained cold. Marra did not thank Soren. She passed him as if the command had come from the stones. Her hand hovered over the cage, then lowered to the blue silk covering. The old mother cricket began to sing from the basin. The song was thin now. Urgent. Marra lifted the silk. Inside the cage, hundreds of moon crickets clung weakly to the moss. Their silver bodies had dulled. Their wings were filmed with pale powder. A sound moved through the older women near the herb arch. Not shock, recognition. They knew what drugged care looked like. Marra reached in and touched the moss with one finger. The crickets did not sing, but the old mother did. Her note crossed the courtyard and entered the cage. One weak cricket lifted its wing, then another. A silver shimmer rose from them, not song yet, only memory. It drifted toward Irilla's white wolf mark and wrapped around it like thread around a wound. The mark brightened. Not blessed. Phil. Soren saw it. His voice went low. Her mark is strengthening. Marra kept her finger in the cage, though the powder stung her skin. By songs taken from nests I tended. Irilla's face went still. Aldrin spoke too quickly. Strengthening a Luna mark with nest. Song is permitted when a bride's bond requires support. Marra looked at him. Support is not theft. It is temple stewardship. Then why were the crickets silenced? No answer came. The old mother cricket dragged herself along the basin rim and sang again. The Luna blessing record darkened. The first two lines sank lower into the water, making room for a third. Irilla stepped forward. Enough. Soren moved before she reached the basin. He did not touch her. He simply stood between bride and record. Marra saw the choice. Small, late, dangerous. Not enough to forgive. Enough to continue. The basin water brightened. Silver letters surfaced slowly, each one drawn out as if from a sleeping throat. Song drawn from her sleeve while she slept. The lines stayed on the basin after the old mother cricket stopped singing. Song drawn from her sleeve while she slept. For a long moment, no one moved. The Summer Moon Courtyard remained bright with lanterns, silver fountains, pale banners, and a silence so complete it felt older than law. Marra Fenwick stood with her right sleeve open, the old mother cricket trembling against her wrist, while every noble tried to decide whether the basin had accused a bride, a priest, or the whole court that had allowed no-howl women to be useful but never believed. Irilla recovered first. Sleep language is easily misunderstood, she said. Old attendants often rest near the nests. Fabric gathers song. There is nothing criminal in cloth remembering care. Marra looked at her. There is when someone opens the cloth while the woman inside it sleeps. High Priest Aldrin lifted his silver staff. Careful! The record says song was drawn. It does not say theft. Does temple law have a kinder word for taking from a sleeping woman? Marra asked. The priest's eyes hardened. No. Howl women may tend sacred creatures. They may not interpret sacred wording. Marra almost smiled. You always remember the first half. Soren stood near the basin, still and dark under the moon lanterns. He had not spoken since the record named her sleeve. His gaze moved from the glowing words to Marra's cuff, where a faint silver stain had begun to surface along the inner seam. What happened that night? He asked. Marra did not like that his voice had softened. Softness could become another way of taking. Still, the question stood where silence had once stood, and she answered because the truth deserved sound. 3 nights ago, after Irilla ordered the no-howl women behind the herb arch, one of her attendants brought me moon tea for old bones. Marra looked down at the stain. I woke before dawn with my sleeve damp, and the old mother cricket pressed to my wrist like she had been trying to hold herself together. A small movement passed through the herb arch. The older women there did not gasp. They knew that kind of story too well. Irilla's expression became wounded. You accuse my household because you accepted tea? I accuse whoever thought my sleep was easier to use than my consent. The old mother cricket stirred on Marra's wrist. Her pale left wing opened, weak but stubborn. The inner nest cage near the central arch trembled in answer. Marra turned toward it. The cage had been brought from the moon arch passage for the final blessing. It was covered in blue ceremonial silk, the color no one had given her. Under the silk, the crickets should have been restless with night song. They were silent. Marra stepped toward it. Aldrin blocked her with his staff. No, Howl hands will not touch the inner blessing cage. Soren's voice cut through the space between them. Move the staff! The priest stiffened. Majesty, move it. Aldrin obeyed, slowly. Marra did not thank Soren. She passed him as if the command had come from stone, not from the man who had let her be displayed. At the cage, she lifted the blue silk. A bittersweet smell rose at once. Sugared milk, crushed moonseed, sleep herb boiled too long. The inner crickets clung weakly to the moss, their silver bodies dulled, their wings filmed with pale powder. Poison did not always come as death. Sometimes it came as obedience. Marra reached inside and touched the moss with one finger. The powder stung Hare's skin. Arilla said if she touches them now, every reading becomes suspect. Marra did not look back. They were touched before I reached them. The old mother cricket gave a thin, broken note. The sound crossed the courtyard, entered the cage, and made the filmed wings shiver. Pale dust fell into the moss like powdered moonlight gone rotten. The basin brightened. The first 3 lines sank lower, making room for a fourth. The letters formed slowly, as if the record had to drag the truth through the drugged silence. Poison, placed in inner nest. Arilla exhaled too softly. Aldrin raised his staff, but Soren stepped between him and the basin. No seal covers that water. The priest froze. The record wrote one more line. Order spoken under Summer Moon seal. Everyone knew the Summer Moon seal hung from Aldrin's staff. That was why no one looked at it. The silver emblem rested below the crescent blade, carved with a sleeping wolf curled around a cricket cage. It had opened Luna vows for 6 generations. It had blessed brides, sealed bloodlines, and made priestly decisions sound older than the hands that benefited from them. Now the basin had named it. Order, spoken under Summer Moon seal. Aldrin's fingers tightened. Arilla moved quickly, before fear could take shape. The seal gives hundreds of orders during Luna season. Nest placement, cloth preparation, final vow timing. This line proves only that the temple worked. Marra cradled the old mother cricket closer. Then let the seal say which work. No, Howl women do not question the Summer Moon seal, Aldrin said. No, Marra answered. We polish it after it is done stepping on us. A murmur passed through the no-howl women at the herb arch. Soren looked toward them. For the first time, he seemed to see not servants, not aunties, not silent helpers, but women whose hands had kept his sacred rites alive, while his court decided they could not witness them. Marra did not let that comfort her. A king noticing late was still late. Soren turned back to Aldrin. Open the seal. The priest's mouth tightened. The Summer Moon seal opens only during final vow, birth witness, or blood challenge. This ceremony has already failed final vow, Soren said. It was disrupted. It was refused, Marra said. Aldrin looked at her with disgust he did not fully hide. By insects you handled. By insects you drugged. Arilla stepped closer to Soren. My king, do not let a no-howl ant and a dying cricket fracture a vow compact before the river houses. Dying cricket. Marra felt the word strike the little body in her palm more sharply than any insult aimed at herself. Soren looked down at Arilla's hand as it reached for his arm. He removed his arm before she touched him. Publicly. The courtyard changed. Only a little. Enough. Open the seal, he said again. Aldrin did not move. Marra stepped forward. Do not open it because he commands you. Open it because if my care was taken cleanly, the order should survive being heard. The priest's face paled with anger. The seal will not answer her. The old mother cricket crawled from Marra's palm to her wrist. Slowly, with her broken leg dragging, she reached the back of Marra's hand and waited. Marra understood. The seal would not answer a no-howl woman, but witness might answer care. She raised her hand toward the silver emblem. Aldrin recoiled. Remove that creature. No one did. The old mother cricket stepped onto the summer moon seal and pressed her body against it. She did not sing. She remembered. A vibration passed through the staff, then through the stones, then into the moonstone basin. The line naming the seal sank beneath the water. A new line rose in its place. Draw care song from no-howl sleeve. The courtyard chilled. Aldrin whispered, incomplete wording. The basin answered with another line. Strengthen bride mark before vow. Irilla's composure cracked, only for a heartbeat. Enough. Marra caught the old mother cricket as she slipped from the seal. The tiny creature's body felt too light in her palm. You used us both, Marra said. Aldrin's mouth tightened. The order does not name the bride. No, Marra said. It names what was done for her. Irilla lifted her chin. A lunamark may be strengthened by the pack's care. That is unity. Unity does not drug the nest. Soren stared at the basin. His royal wolf stirred beneath his skin, not with a growl, but with a painful pressure that made the lantern flames lean away from him. Marra saw his hand move to his chest. The basin brightened again. A final line surfaced under the seal order. The royal wolf heard the false thread first. Soren went utterly still. Irilla whispered, Do not read that. But the water had already written it. The royal wolf had heard the false thread first. The line stayed beneath the water, silver and cold. Soren stood before it with one hand near his chest, as if something inside him had struck bone from beneath the skin. For all his power, all his black mantle, all the court's fear of him, he looked for one breath like a man discovering that his own body had been telling the truth while his crown refused to listen. Irilla recovered with a wounded smile. The royal wolf hears many things before ceremony. Tension, expectation, rival scent. It proves nothing. Marra looked at Soren. Did your wolf resist the right? Irilla's eyes sharpened. Careful. Marra did not turn. That was not asked of you. The courtyard held its breath. Soren's jaw tightened. Yes. The answer was quiet. It was also ruinous. Aldrin lifted the summer moon's seal. A royal wolf may resist any vow before breath bond settles. That is why the pre-vow rite exists. Marra looked at him. To settle the wolf? To steady it. Or silence it. The priest's face hardened. Irilla's voice softened. My king, she is turning sacred preparation into violation. Marra looked at the white mark at Irilla's collarbone. No. I am asking why your mark needed a royal wolf quiet before the vow. Soren's wolf pressed closer to his skin. The fountains rippled though no wind touched them. The moonstone basin brightened again. No cricket sang this time. The inner nest was too weak, and the old mother lay nearly spent in Marra's palm. But the water reached toward Soren in a thin silver line. Not toward his hand, toward his throat. Irilla went pale. Soren, do not let it touch you. Marra said, if his wolf is clean of the thread, the basin cannot harm him. Aldrin snapped. A no-howl woman cannot test a royal wolf. I am not testing him, Marra said. The silence is... For one breath, Soren did not move. Kings were trained to hide wounds until someone else had cleaned the blood. Then he stepped forward and lowered his throat to the silver line. The water touched him. Nothing happened. Then his royal wolf tried to howl. No sound came out. Soren's face went white beneath the moonlight. The silence that followed was not the cricket's silence. It was personal, a king's body refusing to lie. Marra felt no triumph, only a sorrow she did not want. Irilla whispered, "He is tired from ceremony." "No," Marra said, "he is bound." The basin answered, the old line sank away, and a new one surfaced. Royal howl tied to bride mark before public vow. Fear moved through the court at last. A false Luna rite was one thing. A bound Alpha King was another. Aldrin lifted his staff. This reading must be sealed. Soren opened his eyes. No, the word carried no roar. Only the absence of a howl stolen before anyone knew to mourn it. The inner nest trembled. One weak cricket lifted its filmed wings. Then another. The poisoned choir could not sing yet, but memory moved through them in fragile silver pulses. The basin brightened once more. Bride mark fed by Care Witness and King Wolf both. The letters bent, as if another hand beneath the water tried to force them down. Then one final sentence began to rise. False Luna thread entered through. Irilla reached for the basin. Not openly, only one pale hand drifting toward the moonstone rim, as if she meant to steady herself. The motion was graceful, wounded, almost invisible beneath the lantern light. Marra saw it. She had spent a lifetime watching women hide knives inside kindness. The inner nest shivered before Irilla touched the water, and the half-formed sentence brightened. False Luna thread entered through. Aldrin stepped forward. The witness is unstable. Marra looked at him. It is interrupted. Irilla withdrew her hand. Too late. Soren saw. His royal wolf remained locked in terrible quiet. A king without his howl still looked like a king, but Marra could feel the wound now. Not weakness. Binding. Aldrin spoke quickly. The line concerns the pre-vow breath. It is lawful. Marra turned to Soren. Moon air? His face tightened. There was a cup, he said, before we entered the courtyard. Irilla's voice softened. Moon water, blessed for your safety. Soren looked at her. I remember drinking. Marra heard the missing piece. He remembered drinking. He did not remember choosing. Near the central arch, a silver cup rested half-hidden behind white flowers and ceremonial cloth. Courts admired grand symbols and forgot small objects that entered bodies. Marra lifted the cloth. The cup smelled faintly sweet. Sleeping moon, an herb used in tiny amounts to calm first-shift pups. Too much could soften will without putting the body fully to sleep. She looked at Soren. Your wolf was not steadied, it was quieted. Aldrin's voice sharpened. No, howl women cannot judge temple drafts. No, Marra said. But old women know when something has been put in tea. The herb arch went still. Soren looked toward the no-howl women gathered there, and understanding crossed his face. Not one violation. A custom. Marra did not let him rest in it. You drank, she said. Then you breathed over her mark. Soren met her eyes. Yes. And your wolf did not howl? No. Irilla said, the pre-vow breath is silent. It is intimate. Sacred. How useful, Marra said. A rite no witness hears. The old mother cricket stirred in her palm and touched one weak foot to Marra's wrist, asking. The cup had touched Soren's mouth. The bride mark had taken his breath. The basin needed the path between them. Marra looked at Soren. Breathe over the water. Irilla's face went pale. No. Aldrin lifted the staff. Forbidden. Soren did not look at them. He looked at Marra. For once, there was no command in his eyes. Only a man whose wolf had been locked inside his own throat, standing before the woman whose care song had been taken while she slept. Still, she did not soften. Do it because you want your wolf back, she said, not because you want me to think better of you. He stepped to the basin and breathed once over the water. No sound came with it. That was the horror. A royal alpha's breath should have carried pressure, heat, the faint growl of the beast beneath the man. This breath fell into the basin like ash from a dead fire. The water went black. Silver letters surfaced through it. False Luna thread entered through pre-vow breath. A second line followed. King Wolf quieted before Bride Mark fed. Soren closed his hand around the cup until silver cracked. Aldrin moved toward the basin. Soren's voice stopped him. No seal touches that water. A better command. Still late. Still not a cure. Arilla stepped back beneath the central arch. Her white wolf mark pulsed unevenly now, bright one moment, hungry the next. The mark reacts to insult, she said. No, Marra answered. It reacts to hunger. The inner nest shivered. Pale powder fell from filmed wings into the moss. The basin drew the powder's reflection into its dark surface and wrote again. Bride Mark fed each time his howl failed. No one read the line aloud. A howl was not decoration. It was not ceremony music. It was the place where a wolf told the world, I am here. Soren Black's royal wolf had been fed into silence. Arilla touched her white mark. A Luna mark often draws strength from the alpha before a vow. That is union. Marra looked at her. Union does not require drugging his breath. Aldrin lifted the summer moon seal, but did not strike the basin. Soren stood too close now. If the royal wolf resisted, the priest said, the bride mark may have drawn harder to stabilize the bond. Stabilize, Marra repeated. She had begun to hate clean words. They were where cruelty went to bathe. Soren stared at the water. Blood showed where the cracked cup had cut his palm, but he did not seem to feel it. Marra did. Not tenderly. With recognition. They had not wounded him because he was weak. They had wounded him because his wolf knew too much. Arilla turned toward the river road lords. Will you let an old ant's insect grief unravel an alliance built for 3 borders? Marra did not answer. She looked at the no-howl women at the herb arch. Who prepared the sleeping moon? Aldrin snapped. They are not witnesses. An iron-gray woman stepped forward before fear could pull her back. Tessa, who had cleaned birthing stones for 26 years and never been invited to a naming feast. I boiled moon herbs for the priest's stores, Tessa said. Not sleeping moon. That mixture smells darker. Aldrin's face tightened. Return to your place. Soren spoke before Marra did. Her place is where she can be heard. Tessa lifted her chin. Sleeping moon needs bitter root to hold a wolf quiet. Bitter root was not in my pot. Marra looked at the broken cup. Then someone added it after. One of Arilla's attendant went pale. Arilla stepped slightly in front of her. Enough of frightening servants. Marra's voice stayed calm. You mean enough of letting them remember. The old mother cricket twitched. A faint vibration passed into the basin, not new song, but what had already been touched. Cup, sleeve, seal, mark. Soren looked at Marra. What does it need? She hated that he asked her, instead of the priest. She hated more that part of her recognized it as correction. The final vow cord. Arilla went still. The cord lay on the central altar, braided in silver and white, meant to bind alpha wrist to Luna wrist, while the moon crickets sang. It looked harmless. Beautiful things often survived by looking harmless. Aldrin stepped forward. The vow cord cannot be touched before completion. Because it seals the rite? Marra asked. Yes, exactly. Soren took the cord. The instant his fingers touched it, Arilla's mark flared white. His throat closed. Marra saw his body fight for breath before the court understood. The royal wolf pressed against his skin, trying to howl through something braided to stop sound. Soren dropped to one knee. Arilla reached for the cord. Marra reached first, not to touch Soren, to touch the braid. The old mother cricket's wing brushed it. The inner nest shivered. Every poisoned cricket lifted its body toward the altar, too weak to sing, still refusing sleep. The cord revealed itself. Silver threads unwound inside the braid, showing hidden blue silk, pale powder, and one fine dark hair. Marra's hair. Taken from the sleeve seam where she had slept, Aldrin whispered, "Do not read that." Marra looked at him. "You still mistake me for someone who needs permission." The basin pulled the cord's reflection into its water. Final vow will seal care song to bride mark. Soren's hand tightened at his throat. A second line rose. Royal howl will feed it until death. Arilla backed away from the altar. The basin wrote one final line. The thread can be broken only if the care witness withdraws her song. The basin water held the sentence steady. The thread can be broken only if the care witness withdraws her song. No ripple softened it. No priest covered it. No court whisper rose quickly enough to bury what the moonstone had written. Marra stared until the words stopped looking like prophecy and became what they truly were, a demande. Her song, not her howl, not a mate claim, not a Luna crown, care. The one thing they had taken because no one thought it powerful enough to ask for. Arilla recovered first. If she withdraws it, the nest song may collapse. The inner crickets are poisoned. The royal wolf is bound. Does the court truly want a no-howl ant deciding whether the alpha king's howl survives? Fear dressed as concern. Aldrin lifted the summer moon seal. A care witness may be recorded, but withdrawal of song is a temple act. No howl women may tend. They cannot unbind Luna thread. Marra looked at him. You were happy to use my song when I was sleeping. The old mother cricket moved faintly in her palm. Still alive. Barely. Soren remained on one knee beside the altar, one hand at his throat. He looked at Marra, not commanding, not begging, waiting. That mattered more than the court understood. Still, Marra did not soften. She stepped to the basin. Moon crickets do not choose crowns. They refuse false thread. And care song is not temple property. Arilla's face sharpened. You would ruin a Luna right rather than share what you claim to have given the pack? Marra looked at the herb arch, where the no-howl women stood in brown and gray. I shared it, she said. That is how you found enough to steal. The words moved through the older women like wind through dry grass. One by one they came forward. Tessa first, then Noel, who had buried 3 winters of dead nestlings, then Bryn, whose shaking hands calmed every frightened cage she touched. Women without public howls. Women with no ceremonial blue. Women who had kept sacred things alive while priests named them cleaners. Aldrin struck stone. Return to your places. Zulun rose. The movement cost him. Marra saw it in the strain at his throat. Still, he stood. Their place, he said, is where the record named them. The summer moon seal flickered. Aldrin went still. Marra turned away before gratitude could be demanded from her face. What must I withdraw from? She asked. No priest answered. The old mother cricket opened her pale wing. The inner nest stirred. A silver thread rose from Marra's sleeve. It stretched to the poisoned cage, then to Arilla's bride mark, then to the vow cord, then to Soren's throat. Along it pulsed stolen care, warmed nests, sleepless nights, saved hatchlings, brown sleeves held close through frost fever. Marra understood. If she tore the thread, the wounded crickets might die. If she left it, Arilla's mark would keep feeding, and Soren's wolf would remain bound until death. So she did not tear it. She withdrew consent. Marra opened her hands over the basin. The old mother cricket stood unsteadily on her palm. "You were not given to her," Marra whispered. "None of you were," the cricket sang. Almost nothing. One cracked thread of sound. But the inner nest answered with motion. Hundreds of filmed wings lifted inside the poisoned cage. Powder fell from them like pale ash. The no-howl women stepped closer, each placing one hand near the cage, warming the air without touching, giving back freely what had been taken by stealth. The stolen silver thread trembled. Arilla grabbed her mark. "Stop!" Marra did not look at her. No. The word ended the ceremony. Care song pulled back from Arilla's throat. Not violently. That would have made it look like attack. It returned like water to earth after a vessel cracked. The white wolf mark on Arilla's collarbone flared, bright and beautiful for one final breath. Then, the beauty failed. Under the white glow, a darker seam appeared. Blue silk, sleeping moon, poisoned nest, dust, and the outline of Soren's stolen breath woven through the false thread. The court saw it. No priest could call that blessing. The thread withdrew from the vow cord next. The hidden blue silk blackened and snapped. Soren staggered as the last strand pulled from his throat. For one terrible breath, nothing happened. Then his royal wolf howled. The sound broke across the Summer Moon Courtyard, deep enough to shake the fountain water and wake every lantern flame. It was not a mate howl, not a bridal claim. It was a freed thing announcing itself alive. The inner nest answered, not with full blessing song. With witness, thin, tired, uneven, but real. The Luna blessing record wrote one final line. False Luna thread broken by care witness consent withdrawn. High Priest Aldrin lowered his staff as if it had become too heavy. Arilla stood beneath the central arch with one hand at her throat. Her white wolf mark had not vanished, but it had thinned to something raw and uneven, a painted moon after rain. Without Marra's stolen care song and Soren's bound howl feeding it, the mark no longer looked sacred. It looked hungry. She lifted her chin anyway. This proves only that my mark was attacked. Marra looked at her. Supported things stand when care is returned. Arilla had no answer. Soren's royal wolf still moved in the stones. The sound of its returned howl had not fully faded. He turned to Aldrin. The ceremony is ended. Arilla's face went white. You cannot end a Luna vow before the river houses. I can end a false one. The alliance will be negotiated without stolen care, drugged nests, or a bound royal wolf. The River Road lords shifted, but none challenged him. Not with the basin still shining, not with every moon cricket in the courtyard, poisoned or whole, facing the record. Soren looked at the summer moon seal. The seal is suspended. Every nest record from the last 7 years will be opened. Every no-howl woman whose care was used in a rite will be named as witness. Aldrin whispered, Majesty, that will change the Luna law. Soren's eyes were cold. It was already changed. You only kept the theft clean. He turned to Arilla. Arilla Wren, your Luna claim is revoked until the full record is judged. Arilla's composure cracked. For her? Soren did not look at Marra when he answered. That mattered. No, for the truth. Marra exhaled slowly. Not relief. Not forgiveness. Space. That was all. Space enough to breathe without being placed behind the herb arch. The old mother cricket folded her pale wing and collapsed against Marra's palm. This time, the movement did not look like dying. It looked like sleep. Tessa stepped forward with fresh moss cupped in both hands. Marra gave the cricket to her. Then she faced Soren. His throat bore a faint silver burn where the false thread had held him. His eyes were on Marra's brown sleeve, the sleeve they had called suspicious only after it became useful. "I owe you more than a command," he said. "Yes," Marra answered. The court heard. "Good. Let them hear a woman not making forgiveness pretty." Soren lowered his head, not a full bow. A king could turn humility into spectacle too easily, but enough to mark that he stood before someone he had failed. "What do you require first?" Marra looked at the poisoned cage, the basin, the no-howl women standing in the open at last. "The nests," she said. "Clean water, fresh moss, every sleeping wing washed before anyone speaks of crowns again. And after, records." "Done." Irilla laughed once, broken and sharp. "You think this makes her Luna?" The courtyard went still. Marra turned toward her. "No," she said. "It makes me heard." The answer settled deeper than triumph. Soren did not correct it. He did not declare her chosen. He did not reach for her hand before the court. He did not try to turn justice into romance while poisoned crickets still needed washing and women still needed names written where their care had been used. That was the first wise thing he did after the howl returned. The moon crickets began to sing again. Softly. Not the Luna song. Not yet. A care witness song, uneven and silver, rising from weakened cages toward the women who had kept them alive. The no-howl women stood in its sound, not behind the herb arch, not beside the linen, not where silence belonged. Marra Fenwick stood beside the basin that had written her name. Her sleeve was stained. Her hands smelled of moss, bitter herb, and old work. Her heart was too tired for victory and too awake for shame. Above the Summer Moon Courtyard, the banners stirred, though no wind moved. And for the first time in 41 years, no one dared call her useless.